morning. 8:38, we've broke camp and we're gonna make it to the ferry station. I think it's about a half mile, maybe 0.6 of a mile. So it shouldn't take too long. And we'll see from there. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. We're walking down the trail. I think we're on the red trail now. We just left the ferry where the dock is, and we dumped our packs and we left it there. So we're walking much lighter now, about 30 pounds lighter, and we're gonna walk down to some ruins, I guess, at Dungeness, and make it back hopefully for the ferry. We got about an hour, so we should be fine. Well, hello. So you just finished watching day 3 of the Cumberland Island trip, which was a good trip, although it was shorter than planned. And we also had some negative issues that came to light, but there were also some positives as well. So anyway, on day 3, we woke up, had breakfast, took down camp, and then eventually you saw we made the hike from sea camp over to the dock. And that's only about a half-mile walk, so it was pretty fast. When we got there, we decided to drop our packs, and we walked south. I think it's just under a mile, probably less than a mile, to some of the ruins, and there's another dock there as well. And I was able to walk around, see some of that, and take some pictures, and then hurried back. I like to be early for things. I was always worried about, obviously, my pack was unattended, which I do not like to ever do. And also, you just want to make sure you're back in time so you don't miss the ferry, because that was important to us. We had decided after the injury of the person that was walking with us, which they did end up breaking a bone in their nose. And that person obviously was transported along with their spouse. Unfortunately for us, those were the 2 leaders of the trip. They were the one that had made all the reservations and really were guiding us on what we were doing. So could we have continued the trip? I think we could have. I think between the remainder of us, we easily could have navigated where we needed to go and stayed elsewhere. But it definitely took some of the planning out, because none of us knew some of the other things that we were going to do. So in other words, we were going to go to another campsite and stay there for 2 days and do little day hikes. And while we could have probably came up with something, they were the ones that were basically carrying the load on that, so to say. They were the ones that did all the planning and would guide us to where we were going to go see different things. So without them, that plan kind of fell apart a little bit. And additionally, it was also decided we would try to beat some of the bad weather that was coming in that afternoon. So we decided to leave the day earlier than planned, well, 2 days really, but by getting out, we stayed overnight at Sea Camp. We were very, very close to the dock, so we could get there early in the morning. We could get off, and we would avoid the weather that was supposed to move in later that afternoon. There's supposed to be some thunderstorms coming in. So that's some of the logic and thinking that went into our planning. We saw this female that walked in, and she looks, she's dressed like a mountain woman. But turned out, I didn't know who she was, but some of the other people did know who she was, that she is a famous author, biologist, naturalist, environmental activist, champion of the Cumberland Island area, and I'm going to butcher her name, but she's Dr. Carol Ruckteschel. I hope I said that right. She's 83 years old. She looks great for that, and very, very active. She took a picture with some of the people of our group. I didn't take one. I took a picture with her, of her, I mean, but not with her. I didn't know who she was, but a couple of people there have read her book that she wrote about the island, and they were familiar with her, so they recognized her. And so that was nice, and she was very, very nice and accommodating to do that. We took the ferry back to the mainland. When we got there, I stopped by the Park Service. I had to pay for the upgrade to Sea Camp for the night, and I wanted to thank them personally for all they had done to help us, both in getting someone to come pick up our injured party member and arranging for us to get a campsite at Sea Camp, which is usually booked up solid and is very, very hard to get. But luckily, I think there was a group that left early or canceled, and we were able to get that before it went out. So they accommodated us. I also wanted to make sure that they freed up the other campsites that were reserved under our group's name. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of that paperwork, so I couldn't do anything with it, ask for a refund or exchange. Everybody kind of loaded up. We said goodbye, and I started driving home. Uneventful trip till I came home. When I got home, first thing obviously you do, unload, shake out your gear. I put all my gear out back, and I took a shower. And for some weird reason, I had this thing about do a tick check on yourself. And I do that, but I don't normally do that. And I did use permethrin on some of my clothes, but actually I decided at the last minute to change my pair of pants and took a pair of pants that was not treated, which is probably impacted what happened after. I found several ticks on my body. I found 3 of them. One of them was in my right armpit, and it was embedded. I could not get it out. Beside it being an awkward place to work on and try and get, I couldn't get it out. I ended up going to urgent care that night. I think it was a Friday, not a Saturday. And after quite some time, so you'll see here in some of these pictures that are coming up that I'm going to show, where I found the tick. One of them I removed, and you can see some picture of that. That's on my sink counter, my bathroom sink. And then later on, there's me at the urgent care. And when the doctor there, who I gotta say did a very, she was determined. She did not give up. She was discussing sending me to the emergency room because she was having trouble getting it out. It was so deeply embedded. But she was very persistent, and she ended up getting out the tick. Unfortunately, it was squashed to pieces. So it was really just the exoskeleton, I guess, of the thing, which caused me more concern because now I'm thinking if it has Lyme disease or anything, all its blood and guts or anything are inside my armpit. I wasn't too worried about it, but my biggest concern was not so much the tick, but the possibility of Lyme disease. It is rampant in some places. So that being said, that was my big concern. I did get an immediate dose of antibiotics, and I planned on following up, which I did. I ended up following up with multiple doctors. It became a kind of a cluster because I went to my my primary care physician, and they're not really familiar or really keen on, this is not what they deal with a lot. They don't deal with a lot of tick bites or whatever. So I was concerned that there was still some of the tick left inside my arm and my armpit. So they actually suggested I go to a dermatologist again. I had already gone to one after seeing the urgent care. 2 or 3 days later, I went to a dermatologist because I wanted a tick check on me. And there's places I can't see. And that's where I found, even 2 days later, another tick still on me. So that meant to me that I had, at a minimum, I had a tick on me for 48 hours, as much as maybe 70 or 80 hours. So that increases the likelihood of getting Lyme disease. So I was tested. They took a test right then to show that you don't have Lyme disease, but it may take several weeks for you to test positive for Lyme disease. So I waited 6 weeks before going for a blood test to see if I had Lyme disease. In the meantime, I went to a dermatologist to do a tick check. They did a good job, but I felt it could have been a little more thorough. I think they were a little standoffish about searching me. And the primary places you need to really check are obviously your scalp, your groin, your butt, your underarms, which obviously I had checked. I found one in the back of my knee, places where you don't see them because even when you wash, you don't really come across them. There's a lot of places that you generally do not really stick your fingers and your hands and check real good. And that's where they love to go. Your waistband, your groin, and the back, your butt, things like that. So that's areas that are very hard to check, even with a mirror. And I wanted to go have a doctor look at it. So the dermatologist looked at it, and then I saw my primary physician, who, once again, I wanted antibiotics. I prefer to do a course of antibiotics as a precaution. So fortunately for me, the doctor agreed and put me on a course of antibiotics. I then was also, the doctor could not tell because I thought there was a spot that I could still see a darkness there. And I was worried that some of the parts of the tick were still inside me. So they sent me back to a dermatologist to see if they see anything, because they have better equipment than my doctor does to do that. And they would be able to remove it. So I went to see the dermatologist that I usually see every 6 months or so, who did a much thorough job to me and a much better job in checking me out to make sure I had no other ticks. At this point, it had already been about a week and a half. So I was hoping that if there were ticks, they would have already dropped off. I would have found them. However, they did not see anything there. They did not feel that discolored area was of a concern. I advised them that what I was doing, taking antibiotics as a precaution, and I already had a blood test scheduled to make sure that I didn't have Lyme disease. And I'm happy to report that as of now, I'm recording this in July, so it's been 3 to 4 months already. I do not have Lyme disease. However, I am still taking another test in a couple of months, and I have that one scheduled already as well. And I think that's going to be in September. So if it comes back negative, I know I definitely don't have it. So just a precaution. I rather know than not know, and I have no problem. It's a blood sample. However, it does take longer than you think. It takes several days actually to get the results back. And I'm looking forward to one day possibly going back there. I will definitely treat my clothes a little better and look forward to exploring more of Cumberland Island. But I did have a great time. I got to say, I had a good time with the club. I think everything went well, except for the obviously falling down and someone getting injured. But even that was a good lesson. We learned, yes, you can function, you can do things. We strung out a little bit. You can hear on that video where that person is yelling like, hey. I thought it was someone in a campsite calling to me because they heard me, not realizing that that person that was with the person that went down was actually calling for help. Just weird when I listened to that and I noticed that I had recorded her calling out because I remember it happening and I thought it was someone on the other side because we're making noise as we go through. So it's just interesting that I caught the precise moment that person fell and the person that was with them was calling for help. We did everything we were supposed to do first aid wise pretty correctly. I don't think there was anything that needed to be done. My biggest concern was concussion, actually, more than the broken nose. I didn't know if that was going to be an issue. You're dealing with a hiker that went down hard, unknown. They claimed that they didn't lose consciousness, but they were definitely dazed. So there's a possibility that the brain may have taken a shot as it came to a sudden stop at the bottom and maybe bounced back. And there was always that concussion problem that I worry about. And that to me was more of a concern because this person, I got to give them credit. They walked out. They walked over a mile back to the road. They also wanted to continue the hike, which I think was kudos to them, brave of them, very stoic, wasn't complaining, wasn't crying. They didn't seem to be in a lot of pain. I didn't know if that was the adrenaline or the shock of it all, but I did not think that was a smart decision. And we obviously decided to evacuate, so to say, or to get them to better health care than we could offer on the island. That's where it becomes apparent. It's funny, I started out that day worrying about me, and it ended up in someone else. And I had no trouble with my allergies continuing on. It did take a couple of days for that swelling to totally go down. I think I was back home and I still felt like it hadn't gone down. So it was definitely unusual for me to have an allergic reaction for that long. But if it's something in the air, there was a lot of pollen, then it makes sense that I was still being exposed to it. So I did take Benadryl over the next day or two, especially at night, to help me go to sleep, but also to counteract any allergic reaction that I may be having. And I'm following up with that as well with my doctor. I'll probably go on some precautionary antihistamines, some precautionary antihistamines when I go camping in the future, since that seems to be an issue that I've had. I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch the videos. I appreciate that. I know you have a choice of what to do with your time and what to watch, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a comment, please leave a comment. If you feel like subscribing, please do so. Share the podcast with a friend. But I want to thank you for taking your time out watching them. Till we meet again.